Okay, so have you ever heard of a bar rush quite like this?
Um, I can't say I have.
We're going to dive into this whole thing with liquor licenses
Ah,
in Andhra Pradesh, India. And the
right.
story's pretty wild. Basically, you have
Yeah.
90,000 people
Wow.
all trying to get a chance to open up a liquor shop.
Really?
That's not a pub crawl.
That's why.
That's like an army of,
Yeah.
entrepreneurs all going after the same thing.
That's intense.
It's pretty intense, and we're going to break it down.
Yeah, so 90,000 applications
90,000 applications.
for liquor licenses. That's got to be some kind of record.
I would imagine.
Yeah.
And all this information comes from mydognews.com.
Oh, okay.
They kind of broke this whole thing down. And
Yeah.
one of the things that stood out to me right off the bat was that they said that there was about, get this, 1,800 crore
Oh, wow.
collected in fees,
Wow.
which translates to something like over US $200 million.
Just in like application fees alone?
Just an application fee.
Wow. That's
Just to apply
that's a lot of money
for the chance to
No, to be in the running.
sell liquor.
That's incredible. So Andhra Pradesh is
Yeah.
sitting on a gold mine of thirsty customers.
But it sounds like, right?
Yeah.
Like, what is going on here? Is this
Yeah.
just a huge demand? I mean, what's the story?
Yeah, it seems like alcohol, there is a huge, like you said, economic force.
Right?
If the government is potentially bringing in that much revenue
Yeah.
just from application fees alone, I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah. You start to think like, that's a lot of money that could go
Right.
to schools, to infrastructure, to
Exactly.
who knows
Yeah.
what,
And not to mention, like, the actual revenue they're going to get from all the sales
And
once these shops are up and running.
It really makes you wonder about,
Right.
the government's motivation here.
Yeah. And I mean, with that much money involved, things could get a little dicey, right? Like,
For sure. For sure. And this article even mentioned
yeah.
the possibility of like syndicates being involved.
Syndicates. Really?
Yeah, like,
Like organized groups trying to
organized
market on these licenses? Or
trying to get their hands on these licenses. So it really makes you wonder.
what would be the advantage of having a syndicate involved in something like that?
I mean, if you have a bunch of people
Right.
pooling their resources, maybe they could bring in some bigger players.
Oh, I see. So they have more capital to kind of throw
Yeah.
around. And
Exactly. And maybe even international players,
wow. So it's like a global
Yeah,
liquor game.
it's a huge deal.
That's fascinating. So it's not just about, like we said, the local economy. This is like a
Right.
big deal.
It's a huge economic opportunity
Yeah.
for whoever can get their hands on these licenses.
Wow.
And speaking of getting your hands on these licenses,
Yeah.
the deadline just passed.
Oh, really?
It just passed.
So it's too late to apply now?
Yeah, but there was a little bit of a cliffhanger moment
Okay.
because they added a 12-hour grace period at the end.
A 12-hour grace period. I wonder why they would do that.
I don't know, maybe to give some people a little extra time.
Maybe they realized that there were some technical difficulties or something.
Could be. Could be. And it's interesting.
Yeah.
Think about the fact that they're using a lottery system.
A lottery. Really?
Yeah.
To determine who gets the licenses.
Yeah, a lottery system to actually figure out who gets these licenses.
Huh. So it's not like a merit-based system where they're looking at experience or anything. It's just
It seems that way.
just random chance.
Yeah. Interesting.
And I'm curious.
Is that common for something like this? I don't know.
I've never heard of that before, using a lottery for liquor licenses.
And it kind of makes you wonder, does that prevent corruption?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Or does it kind of open the door for,
For more, I don't know.
Yeah.
Shady dealings, potentially.
Yeah. So many questions about this whole lottery system.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's got to be better than just like a first come, first served.
True.
Because then it would just be a mad rush. And
Oh, yeah. You would have lines around the block.
exactly. It would be chaos.
Oh, yeah. So this lottery system at least introduces a little bit of fairness, maybe.
Right. Like a sense of chance or something. Everyone has an equal shot, theoretically.
Okay. But let's talk about this new liquor policy for a second.
Okay.
Because that's the other part of this whole thing, right?
Right.
So it's not just about getting a license to sell whatever you want.
Okay.
The government is actually putting some stipulations on this whole thing.
Interesting. Like what?
So they're going to introduce their own brand of liquor.
Your own brand.
Yeah. And get this.
Okay.
They're going to sell it at a fixed low price
Yeah.
of $99,
99.
which is
That's like
nothing.
nothing.
It's, I mean, even for India,
Right.
that is insanely cheap.
That's really cheap. So they're
Yeah.
basically undercutting everybody.
Right. And it makes you think like, okay, so
Yeah.
what are they doing here? Are they trying to put every other vendor out of business?
Right. Like, what's the strategy there?
It's kind of like a head scratcher. Right.
Yeah, I mean, on the surface, it seems kind of counterintuitive. Why would you want to undercut your own
Right.
market?
Yeah. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, it could be a public health play.
Okay.
Maybe they're trying to, like, discourage people from going to the black market.
Mm-hmm.
And so if they make it super cheap,
Right.
then people will be more inclined to buy it from a legitimate source.
The legal market, the more appealing option.
Exactly.
Okay.
So it's like a harm reduction strategy, potentially.
That's really interesting. So it could be like a social engineering kind of thing.
Right, exactly.
Wow. So it's not just about the money then.
Right. It seems like there's a lot of different factors at play here.
Right. It's like this multi-layered social, economic, public health.
It's fascinating.
It's a fascinating case study.
Yeah, it really is. And, it really highlights the fact that alcohol is, it's a huge part of...
It's a big part of society.
Society and culture.
Yeah, everywhere.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
But especially in a place like India, I imagine.
Right.
So it's not just about, people, wanting to have a drink. It's about
Right.
all these different factors that go into it.
It's about the government's role. It's about public perception. It's about revenue.
It's really interesting. Well, I think this has been a really eye-opening deep dive.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like I've learned a lot just in this short conversation.
Me too. And, it makes you think, like, what other stories are out there?
Right. Like, what else don't we know about?
Exactly. And, maybe this whole thing with Andhra Pradesh, it seems like it's a world away.
Right.
But these are the kinds of things that are happening all over the globe.
Right. Absolutely. All the time.
And it just goes to show you that, there's always more to the story.
Exactly. And sometimes the most mundane things, like a liquor license, can actually be a window into these really complex issues.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, on that note, I think we'll wrap it up here. And for our listeners out there, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. And until next time, stay curious.
Cheers to that.
Cheers.